I had to take a couple hours to allow this film to really set with me. I was very emotionally blown away by the demonology, and it actually was an interesting perspective of how we live our lives as human beings and how letting in negativity, bad emotions can really affect us. And Nefarious kind of hit the right spots. Now, I had to take all politics out of this. A lot of the Rotten Tomato reviewers were saying it was political, and I get it. There's a lot of different political talking points, and then you get that cameo from Glenn Beck at the end. So obviously, yeah, it's there, But I ignored that for the sake of trying to see what else I enjoyed about this movie. There were a couple negatives, right? Like the script kind of took a few dips and turns, and there was kind of like a underlying contradiction that I was kind of like a little confused by. But overall, the acting was very stellar. It was a very interestingly written script. And if you understand demonology and how demons like to feed off of our negative thoughts, our negative emotions, and lead us down bad paths, I think the movie hit a solid point. Because when I was watching this film, I was kind of feeling bad for the killer because it's almost like the role that Sean Patrick Flannery was portraying had two personalities. One was Nefarious, the demon, and the other was Edward, the killer. I would have liked to see Edward portrayed in a different way because he seemed like a very scared, traumatized child. And they do obviously stem from like your childhood does shape who you are. And from what he understood, he didn't have a happy childhood, and he became a murderer nonetheless. But you really see that the murderer was a victim himself to this demon. Someone who had given the opportunity to turn his life around probably would have, but it's amazing how they emphasize that a demon can snowball someone's life into a tragedy like this. And how demons want you to embrace your negative nature as humans because they want you to be at their evil level because they don't want you going alongside with good. And the demon Nefarious really was twisted. Like he knew when to manipulate the other people to torture his host. He knew when he was torturing his host when he would leave Edward by himself in solitary confinement and all these other things. And you could show that Edward had really lost all free will or all control. And maybe there's something I probably missed about how he got into his current state of demonic possession or how he welcomed it in and it eventually just snowballed into this monster. That's like where one of the contradictions where he was talking about how the importance of free will and how we need to make our own decisions and welcome the demon in based solely on our negative emotion, and then how he kind of took away people's free will to choose whenever he possessed, because it's not only the killer he possesses in this movie, but he possesses the psychologist near the end too. And I'm going to get into that at the end when I talk about what I thought about the ending, because that's spoiler. Um, but other than that, you got to go really see this movie because it's a very thought provoking piece. And it really brought back just into what a lot of us could feel, like how we've made less than moral decisions, less than moral judgments in times of great distress or times of temptation. And we didn't always let it turn us into an absolute monster, but we got a chance sitting there, or at least I did, reflecting on some times where I did bad things based on fear or where I did some stuff. Because in my 18 to 20 year span, I made a lot of questionable decisions. I overreached a little bit based off of my own insecurities. And then you get that following years to reflect on how you act like that. And it's almost the same principle, like whether you want to look at this through just a flesh and blood or a spiritual way on just how we operate morally. I was really also thinking about what someone else might have been going through on the inside when I saw them make some pretty morally questionable decisions. And now I'm going to get into some spoilers just to kind of prove my point. So if you haven't seen this movie or you want to go see, please go see it and then come back and give this another click. Or if you have already seen it or you don't care or you want to know my thoughts, please stick around because throughout the conversation, and it starts in three, two, one. If you're not out by now, it's your fault. Everybody in this movie, you kind of how do I put it? You kind of feel not only for the quote unquote bad guy, but I saw the psychologist, right? And he's all flashy and he's successful, smart, seems like he's good at his job, all the usual stuff, right? You start to see this, and then he's told by the demon his life choices in very great detail, where um he's looking at the choices he has, right? He's looking at uh the choices he's made, and he's reflecting and feeling bad about them. And the experience overall of seeing evil in the face where he actually believes it now, at the end it turns him to God and it turns him towards good, or the opposite and the antithesis of what he used to be, right? And at the end of the movie, obviously he signs off on the prisoner's execution. The prisoner gets executed. And I don't really think it was that bad as far as execution scenes. Those scenes are always questionable for me. I just don't like seeing people get executed sometimes. It's very nerve-wracking, especially when they just hint at how violent it's going to be. But it wasn't as bad as they were drumming it up to be. It was pretty PG-13 as far as execution scenes go. But when the demon was talking about why he chose the electric chair over lethal injection because he wanted to send the killer off on the worst way possible before he goes to hell for even more torture, which just show just how evil these demons are and how much they hate humanity. But after the execution, the demon says, "You should have taken my offer of spreading the dark gospel." He takes a gun out of the detective's holster and starts waving it around the chamber, saying, "I'm not in control of myself. Someone help me." So he's experienced what the killer did his entire life. And I don't know if he was willingly doing it or the demon was saying it, but it was putting it to his chin. And he says, "God help me," right? And the the gun doesn't fire, despite I'm pretty sure it was a loaded gun, which was crazy. So God heard his prayer and wanted to give him a second chance. You fast forward a year, and he's spreading the good word of God. His whole Nefarious plot book, which is what the movie was based off of, right? And how he found God and was ashamed of his past life and was trying to do better. And he was on the Glenn Beck show. And Glenn Beck is one of those controversial political commentators, obviously. So he's getting fame, obviously. He's getting notoriety from this. And then he goes out, gives the homeless lady some money. The homeless lady looks at him, and Nefarious is in the homeless lady saying, "I told you we'd meet again, right? We'll see each other again." And then it's interesting because it gives into how persistent these demons are, tempting you with things like fame, uh, notoriety, all this stuff. And he found it one way or another. Despite it not being the dark gospel that he wanted him to write, um, I still thought it was very interesting. Uh, like how sneaky this demon was. And it brought in a lot of raw thoughts on how evil can be. So it was very shaky because it gives you an authentic evil that says, "Wow, this is really intense." Like there were no jump scares or anything like that. It was just one of those things where I was watching afterwards and I said, "This is insane." So I'm probably going to see this again in theaters. I'm probably going to wait for it to be on Amazon Prime. I really do recommend anyone who wants to just get an idea of demonology, whether you're atheist, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever the case may be, look at it through a movie's perspective. They really did their research with all the do as thou wilt stuff, the Moloch historical references, the just the ways on how demons had morphed human beings to act so they could prove their point in dragging us to quote unquote hell with them. There's a lot of really interesting theological perspectives through the eyes of a demon, and it's just an amazing thought-provoking piece. So I give this movie 8 out of 10. I thought it was well written. I thought, even though it was a little predictable and kind of flip-flopped a little bit, went from intense to chill to intense to chill. I think that's what they're going through. The acting was stellar. The only thing is, like, I really wish I could have seen the authentic killer Edward be portrayed in just a different way than someone who seemed absolutely helpless. I would have liked to have seen a more in-depth, more drawn-out version of that character because it's almost like it was just a helpless guy coming out every now and again to show he was possessed. When there's a lot of different ways I felt like they could have gone through this, like a guy who made one bad decision and just doesn't like living anymore and wants forgiveness and is wondering. That would have been more interesting. They took a really dark turn with that way, right? But it wasn't as bad as I thought. I would definitely say that I enjoyed this. I think that Rotten Tomatoes needs to get its priorities straight a little bit, and I think most moviegoers who are looking into this movie, I recommend you see it. I saw it, I loved it, and I'm definitely planning on watching again, whether it's in my own home or it's in the movie theater again. But for sure, I approve of this movie. I'll see you next time. I'm probably not going to do another movie review for a while, but this was definitely something where I want you to put your thoughts below. Tell me what you thought. Did you get the same impression as I did? If not, but thank you guys very much for my long review. I'll see you guys next time.